Good morning, class. I hope you are doing well. This is the topic 2 and lecture 2 as well of the anthropology and the relationship with imperialism. So, welcome to the class. So, here, Catherine Goff mm, discuss about empire's disillusioned child and what is to be done. So can you guess who were in illusion and why someone is really pointing out what needs to be done to really unmask the illusion? Goff's indictment was explicit, very clear. Anthropology is a child of a Western imperialism. It emerged as a well defined scholarly discourse and academic discipline in late 19th century Western Europe as the last scramble began to divide the remaining bits and pieces of the world among the imperial powers. Not only was anthropology born into global power relations established during the birth of bourgeois Europe in the 15th and 16th centuries and the classification of humanity into the civilized and the primitive, it emerged precisely as the European study of the non European primitive other. From Marvel Universe to Batman, we are all going for the origin story, right? So, what is the socio-political condition and what is the debate among anthropologists' origin story? Until very recently, anthropology's origin story about itself tended to exclusively revolve around its Enlightenment roots. Looks like a big social, political, and also mm, intellectual movement that is exclusively surrounding into Enlightenment roots. However, forgetting its deep-rooted connection to colonial power. With its embeddedness in colonial power relations and discourses, rarely acknowledged, partly because of how anthropologists tended to see themselves and their roles. Perhaps because of their proximity to colonized subjects, they often spoke out on the latter's behalf and tried to protect them from the extremes of colonial rule. Many of them worked tirelessly to disturb ideas about simple and primitive societies. Yet the imperialist framework itself was unquestioned. For Goff, this was similar to the role of white liberal reforms in the West. Can you guess why it is utmost crucial that Goff has pointed out that these questioning the imperialist framework is so important? So many anthropologists were conscious of the ongoing destruction of the cultures that they were studying Indeed, an ethic of rescue and conservation became entrenched in disciplinary practices and norms, yet the relationship between such destruction and the conditions that made anthropology possible was rarely acknowledged. Empire's presence in the field and in the ethnographic text was similarly evaded. Faced with such possibilities, anthropologists took refuge in the safety of professional standards and authority. Victor Turner compared accusations of being apologists of colonialism with reverse accusations of being native spokesmen, raids, etc., that apparently used to be common in a previous era. Yet, it was precisely empire that made the world safe for Western scholars to travel far and wide, living confidently among non Europeans for months and years. It is what gave Western eyes the privilege of accessing non Western lives and producing objective knowledge about them, thereby reinforcing those same relations. As Assad pointed out, anthropologists were not unique among colonial agents in occasionally condemning aspects of colonial rule or being accused themselves of treachery. Their claims to neutrality allowed them to set themselves apart from the colonial project, but also prevented them from openly confronting its premises and imagining radically different possibilities. For Assad, the recognition of imperial origins should push anthropologists to ask some long overdue questions about this history and about how the power relations that engendered anthropology have affected the practical preconditions of social anthropology, uses to which its knowledge was put, theoretical treatment of particular topics, mode of perceiving and objectifying alien societies, and anthropologists' claim of political neutrality. Goff, for her part, emphasized the need for anthropologists to turn their attention and techniques to the study of empire, the capitalist world system, and the transformations that the so called isolated and primitive societies had undergone. She pointed out that anthropologists have found it difficult to approach modern society as a single independent world system and have generally failed to study Western imperialism, tending to euphemize and depoliticize its transformative effects on non Western societies, with portrayals of culture contact or westernization devoid of force, suffering, and exploitation. Anthropologists also tended to go to great lengths to stay away from those aspects of pre industrial societies most affected by the arrival of empire, with primitive communities least touched by modern changes being preferred over the mines, cash crop, plantations, white settlements, bureaucracies, urban concentrations, and nationalist movements. Goff called for an anthropological and non reactionary analysis of the modern world system and the revolutionary upheavals then underway, and engagement with the critical scholarship on imperialism, and a less dismissive dialogue with those who had lived in and written appreciatively about life in the new socialist bloc. That is it for today. Thank you so much. See you in the next video.